Welcome to the Leadership in Law podcast with host Marilyn Jenkins. Cut through the noise, get actionable insights and inspiring stories delivered straight to your ears. Your ultimate podcast for navigating the ever-changing world of law firm ownership. In each episode, we dive deep into the critical topics that matter most to you, from unlocking explosive growth to building a thriving team. We connect you with successful firm leaders and industry experts who share their proven strategies and hard-won wisdom. So, whether you're a seasoned leader or just starting your journey as a law firm owner, the Leadership in Law podcast is here to equip you with the knowledge and tools you need to build a successful and fulfilling legal practice.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Leadership in Law podcast. I'm your host, Marilyn Jenkins. Please join me in welcoming my guest, Gordon Firemark, to the show today. Gordon helps creatives, artists, entrepreneurs, and others achieve the dream of getting their messages out and making a meaningful impact in their craft. He has practiced media, entertainment, and business law since 1992 and is often referred to as the podcast lawyer. A podcaster himself, he's been producing and hosting the Entertainment Law Update podcast since 2009. And for the past few years, Legit Podcast Pro, a live stream and audio podcast to provide podcasters the information and tips they need to stay safe, achieve impact, influence, and earn income with podcasting. Gordon is the author of Podcast Blog and New Media Producers Legal Survival Guide and creator of several online courses for creatives. His undergraduate degree in radio, television, and film and experience in live theater production informs his thinking on all things legal. In addition to his busy law schedule, he teaches law at Columbia College Hollywood, Fashion Institute of Design and Merchandising, and Pepperdine Law School. Tune in to Gordon's live stream morning show, Gordon in the Morning, on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube every weekday at 8:30 a.m. Pacific time. I'm excited to have you here, Gordon. That's very impressive.
Well, thank you. It's such a little bit of an outdated bio because I'm no longer doing that Gordon morning show, but other than that, pretty accurate. So thank you for that.
No
But,
worries. I'm
Glad to
excited
be
to
here,
talk to
Marilyn.
you. Definitely. A little technical challenges getting here, but hey, we're here.
Yeah.
I'm excited to hear about your background in theater before you went to law school. How did that kind of make your trajectory?
Well, my love for theater starts when I was about 5 years old. I was in kindergarten and I went to a K through 12 school in Massachusetts where the high school kids were doing a production of Oliver and they brought the kindergartners in to watch a dress rehearsal. And, they sat us down and taught us to be polite and don't talk and, clap when the appropriate and all that. And then the lights go on and the curtain goes up and I was hooked. I was mesmerized. From that moment on, I knew I was going to have a life related to the performing arts, and I got into the technology. So by the time I was in high school, this is having moved across the country to a new school and all those kinds of things. I'd been getting into some low grade trouble with kids, friends of mine in the middle school era. And the school principal pulled me aside and asked me to run the lights and sound for the school variety show. And that led to
What?
other things. And in high school, I was the school sound guy, not the AV club guy, the sound for the theater program. And then my senior year in high school, I was actually junior and senior year, I was working in a local community theater as the sound and lighting person and
Wow.
decided I was going to be a theater major in college and got there and was rudely awakened to the fact that it was a performance program and I was not a performer. So I eventually shifted into the radio, television, and film end of things. And it was only in my senior year in college that a professor sort of pointed out that I had this aptitude for the business and legal side of things. And while I was applying to film school to become a filmmaker or producer or something, I also applied to law schools and I got into law school. I didn't get into film school. So I actually didn't go right away. I took a year off and came back to LA and started working in the television business. And just as I was sort of ready to make a jump and find something else newer to do, the Writers Guild went on strike and it was going to be a long one. So, okay, law school sounds better and better. And there I am.
Yeah. Do you still do much community theater or theater at all?
I did up until maybe 5 years, a little before, maybe 6 or 7 years ago. As my kids were starting to get older and I wanted to be with them on the weekends and the evenings, it was, had to make some choices. So,
Yeah, it's
um,
definitely a commitment. I was involved in community theater for several years, and it is really cool, but really, really stressful at
well,
times.
and also we had moved from that theater where I still am on the payroll. I'm the lowest employee number on the payroll there, but we moved far enough away that it's a bit of an ordeal to get there. And the community I'm in, their group of people is already sort of locked in. So,
Yeah, right.
yeah.
Interesting. Well, then, so going from that, how did you get, from theater to law school? How'd you get into podcasting?
So I finished law school and started working at a small litigation boutique doing entertainment and media related litigation. The litigation wasn't really for me. I was good at it, but I brought it home and was, argumentative with everybody around me and
Mm.
just couldn't turn it off. So I really wanted to be in transactional practice. I ended up hanging out my own shingle doing a transactional practice. And after a few years, I was sort of looking for ways to grow and market my practice. And I landed on content based, education based marketing with a blog at first and an email newsletter. And then I discovered podcasting sort of at the dawn of that technology when a fellow I was following as a media personality, Leo Laporte, started a podcast of his own. And I started following it. Oh, that's cool. And with my background as a sound guy and my geeky interest in computers and technology, I decided, oh, I'm going to try that and set up a podcast. Well, I was guest on a few shows and that sort of solidified it. So I started my show, Entertainment Law Update, in 2009. So that's 16 years ago now.
Wow.
And been going strong ever since. It's fun.
Fantastic. Now, and so you did that to basically to market your practice, or were you looking for it to grow your practice, or were
Yeah.
you doing it for any other reason first?
Well, I mean, obviously it's gratifying for me. And we started Entertainment Law Update with the idea that it would position us as experts. I have a co-host that I found then. But also, yeah, it was easier than writing a blog every week.
Yes,
So that was the
definitely.
thinking. And, it's fun and we've kept it going strong all this time. It also, I think it makes me a better lawyer just from being tuned in and attending to the legal issues in my field of entertainment law and teaching them every week, you know, makes me forces me to stay on top
Up
of
to
things.
date. Yeah. Well, they say, you learn, you read, you listen, you watch the video, and then
Yep,
you teach, and it just reinforces it. Um,
exactly.
do you do a lot of interviewing of different people in your area, or how do you use your podcast for marketing?
So, as far as how I use it for marketing, it's just something to promote every month when that show comes out. A notice about it goes on the blog, goes on the email newsletter, goes on all the social media, and just reminds people of who I am and here we are. But we've got a big audience of mostly other entertainment lawyers who have become pretty good referral sources for me, actually, because my practice areas are a little different from the average entertainment lawyer. I do theater law and digital media, podcast and YouTube and those kinds of things and influencer stuff. But, the film and TV lawyers who know themselves and don't do that kind of work will happily refer the stuff and it works out pretty well for me. But I don't do a lot of interviewing because it's a lot of work. I admire and respect those who do. But our show is me and a co-host doing a sort of NPR news roundup kind of a style show where we're covering, 8 or 10 cases or legal news stories that have emerged during the previous month. And it's more of an authoritative position than an interviewer. I've done interview shows here and there over the years and enjoy it. I know it is a good way to get expertise by osmosis, I guess you could
Yes.
say, by friction, rubbing against them, right?
Yeah.
And also it can be terrific for making the interview subjects aware of who you are and what you're all about. That can lead to their referrals and that kind of thing. But that's just not the format of our show. So
Well, I think we've been chatting with a couple of other people that I've interviewed about, attorneys should have a podcast. Even just like a very Tom Fox, we were talking about having a local podcast and they talk to local people. And it's just it could be a community building thing. Again, to get their name out there, like you're talking about. And I find that podcasting helps build an incredible network of people. And I learn a lot from talking to other people. So it's really kind of fun, I think.
Yeah,
But
Tom's really
reinforce.
crushed. He's got the compliance network and the local network that he's doing, and he's a friend and a colleague and a client. So
Oh,
I'm
wow.
thrilled to hear that. Yeah. So,
Yeah, he was great to interview, and I found it interesting, his whole network and then the local thing. But it is important, I believe, to build your community and having other attorneys do their own podcast. So you've leveraged it for your practice area, and what do you when you think about user generated media? So we've seen user generated videos. What are you thinking about user generated media, and where do you think it's going?
Interesting question. It's hard to sort of define user generated media because it's used in multiple contexts. Certainly, when it's if you post something on YouTube, you're the user, you're generating that content, and then there are some legal immunities for the folks who run the systems where that's done. But user generated content is also a term used by marketers and advertisers who are basically getting their customers to post social media clips or entire videos that sort of promote their product, I guess more like a testimonial context. But where is it going? Well, I think that, as the playing field has leveled out so much and it's become relatively affordable for people to make media and share it, I think that the nature of our information economy is changing. And I think UGC is going to become user generated content is going to become the more and more prevalent as a marketing tool. So those immunities that I was talking about become more and more important.
Now, thinking about that, you can go into, there used to be websites or you could go to Fiverr and hire somebody to do a testimonial. Well, you can't do that anymore, but you can go to UCG sites and have something about your product or your service, or just have an influencer or someone create, or even not even an influencer, but someone create a video about whatever you want them to talk about.
Mm.
Uh, what's the legal implications for the creator of that type of content?
Well, it's the same concern for the creator and for the brand that is asking or looking for that UGC content. There needs to be a clear and conspicuous disclosure, transparency essentially around the nature of the relationship. If it's paid content, then it needs to say so, and in the same form and medium. So if you're, just like you hear when people have an affiliate relationship, when they recommend a product and they say, if you buy it using my link, well, I'm going to get paid something. That's part of the FTC's disclosure requirements. And the same is true for UGC, that it needs to be clear that there was a financial relationship. I made this video because they paid me to, or are going to pay me, or
Hmm.
or they sent me the goods for free, or whatever it is, because that's the grain of salt that viewers need to use when consuming this stuff.
Well, now I
So,
see that tag. I agree. And I know on affiliate sites, and now, thinking those two together, that makes a lot of sense. I see on Facebook, TikTok, the paid partnership
yeah,
or something like that label on it. But I have seen what's clearly UCG content that's
yeah,
being used as Facebook ads or that sort of thing, that they're reading a script about it, or they're talking about essentially a testimonial, but they're not saying anything about they paid me to do this.
yeah. There's supposed. I mean, if the post is a sponsored post, if the brand is using that content and advertising using it, then the brand is, usually it says sponsored or something like that
Yeah, it
on
does. It does.
the
Yeah. On
video.
Facebook, it'll say
But
sponsored.
but it's supposed to be more conspicuous than that, I think. And we just haven't seen the FTC catch up with that level of. Right now they're focused on the influencers, and they're coming after podcasters a little bit, and the YouTube community has already been under a lot of scrutiny. I think as we see more and more of these TikTok, if I made a TikTok about this product that I love, and then the brand grabs it and pays me for it after the fact, then I didn't know I was going to get paid to make that disclosure. So it's a tough call. I think that as long as the brand is explaining that it's an ad, then we
Yeah.
know that.
So with podcasting, you obviously work with podcasters and creators.
Mhm.
What types of things should we as podcasters look out for to, like I know some podcasts you have to sign a release form, but a lot that you don't. So what should we be CYAing for our podcast.
Well, I'm going to actually take credit for that release form because that has been my crusade for quite a number of years now, is that every podcaster should have their guest give some sort of a release that is, consent to the recording as well as consent to the publication of that recording in all media, if possible, throughout the world, and that there is no compensation, and that the podcaster is the owner of the content. And Marilyn, you hereby have my consent to record us and publish it, and you own it. And I got no say. Once we're done with the call, and it's yours to do with as you please. That's just sort of general, sort of ownership protection for the podcaster. I think that the big issues that I teach podcasters about and try to work with them on is that it is sort of a business, whether they're using it as a marketing arm for a business or a business in and of itself. That's something that needs to be considered. And so there needs to be some business structure. When working with others, then there's the team relationships. That may be partnership or co-production or a joint venture of some sort, or it may just be a matter of having an editor who's working on the show. All of those people should be signing contracts so that it's very clear who owns this and what people should expect out of things. The intellectual property issues are, of course, sort of the most, well, they're the sexiest and funnest to talk about. When folks incorporate a piece of music, or I've even had people recite a poem on their podcast and end up hearing about it from the poet.
Oh, no.
Those kinds of things need to be cleared and licensed. And everybody thinks it's just like radio, but it's not. Radio has special blanket licenses in place that don't apply to podcasts because it's not transient media.
Mhm. And there was a time in TikTok where certain labels took all their music off. And, so there's those music tracks that you can put on your videos. They
Yeah.
were gone for a while. And then a lot of the Taylor Swift music disappeared. And then suddenly it came back.
Yeah, well, after some lengthy negotiations between TikTok and the music companies, that apparently improved the bottom line for the music companies, but whether or not it does any good for the artists is still open question. But yeah, that's YouTube and TikTok and Instagram, and I guess Facebook all have some established relationships with the record labels and the music publishers that give them the right to have their users use this music in content generated for the platform. Where it becomes tricky is when people try to use that stuff beyond the scope of the single platform. And so, yeah, so there's intellectual property issues there. There's the trademark branding side of things. In the podcast world, it's not at all unusual to see 2 or 3 or 4 shows pop up and you try to use the same name or same title. And usually the first one to get there is unhappy about that.
Yeah. I have seen doing some searches for some friends' podcasts, and you go,
Yeah.
wait, there's like 3. And luckily I knew the picture, but they were like 3 of the same name.
Yeah, so we'd really try to avoid that confusion. I recommend to my clients that we register a trademark for the podcast title, sometimes for the logos as well, or the cover art. And sometimes there's segments within the show that have a distinctive title or something that we want to register and protect. And that way we have the ammunition to put a stop to it as soon as those other shows pop into our consciousness.
Great idea.
Yeah, and then there's the monetization side of things. When folks are using a podcast as their business, as the core of their business, we need to make sure not only do they have a promise that they will be paid, but also that they can actually collect on the promise, which is surprisingly enough not always so easy.
What are some of the ways that you can monetize a podcast?
Well, advertising is the most common,
The
most
sponsorships.
commonly thought of. You have to have a pretty
Yeah.
good size audience to make any real money with advertising. Just because the rates are based on thousands of views. So you need 10 or 100,000 views per episode to see real money coming from it. But a lot of folks use it as there's the UGC kind of approach, or the affiliate marketing is another approach, that if you have a modest size audience who actually buy things that you recommend, you can make money on the commission from the sale. And a lot of folks, especially in the expert world, coaches, consultants, and professionals, use the podcast sort of to market their own products and services, whether it's their legal or professional services or online courses and information products. And that's worked out pretty nicely for me. So
Yeah, but you have a masterminding coaching group. that you do for attorneys?
Yeah, and I have a couple of online courses for entrepreneurs and podcasters as well. So the folks that are maybe not inclined to hire a lawyer and cash out a big retainer are inclined to do some of the legal work for themselves. And I thought, well, why don't I teach them how to do that? So
Nice.
yeah.
So tell us a little bit about your mastermind and your coaching program.
So the mastermind really stemmed from a program, a podcast that I had called More, Better, Faster, where I was really helping creative folks and lawyers to just sort of stay focused on their goals and get out of their own way with all the mindset stuff that we let get in our way.
Yep.
And that evolved into helping a few, really friends who came to me and said, okay, how do I get this thing accomplished? Or what, here's my, so we said setting goals and figuring out strategies, and then the accountability, really just sort of turning on the BS detector and
Yeah.
helping folks sort of see where they have blinders on and that kind of thing. So the coaching, that's the coaching, the general coaching program. And then the mastermind and coaching program specifically for lawyers is something that I've created with a colleague, my friend Mike Prywis, and I have a program called Not More, Better, Faster, called Complete Counselor. Sorry, that's the lawyer facing one.
Yeah.
And it's very much the same idea, is let's help you figure out who you are and what you want to be when you grow up, and then how to get there. And maintaining a balance in your lifestyle is I think important. So we're not focused on I want to be a 10 million 100 lawyer law firm owner. We're focused on the smaller law firm lawyer who wants to have dinner with his family more often than not, and spend some time with family and enjoy life, as well as having a successful, thriving law practice. I refer to it as having a lifestyle law practice rather than a law practice lifestyle.
That's it. That's excellent. Yeah, because the 80-hour week or 160-hour weeks it's just crazy to keep. You could only work so hard or put in so many hours.
And you can make a lot of money, and you can't ultimately, when life is over, you can't take it with you. I would rather live and enjoy my life and trade some of that money for, the other good things in life, I guess, the family and relationships and having a good time.
I love that. I mean, especially the fact of being able to have dinner with your family.
Exactly. That was tremendously important to me. When I started my practice, the first 10 years I was single, and that was great. And then I met and married a wonderful woman, and we had kids, and I took a step back and I said, this is what's really important, making a legacy. My legacy will be these children. I want them to be good, responsible, thoughtful people, caring, and that kind of thing. And the best way to make that happen is to be present and model it for them. So that's what I've done.
That's fantastic. I love that. This has been really excellent. I've enjoyed the conversation and the touching on the podcasting and the theater work. I'm going to have a look at my release form.
Well, my release form is available for free for anybody who wants it at podcastrelease.com.
Oh, really? I'll go have a look at that.
Now I have lawyers looking at it and scrutinizing it.
Well, I'll definitely have a look at it because I know it's something that's in the conversation that some people do, a lot of people don't. So I just want to make sure that you're covered. What would you think what was the biggest takeaway that you would like their listeners to take away from this episode?
Well, for listeners of this show as lawyers, I think that what I was saying about the lifestyle is really important, because you can be the greatest lawyer in the world, but if you don't have the family around you and enjoy love and frankly just a good mission in life, I think you're missing out. So
I love that. Well, thank you so much for your time. I know the listeners are going to want to connect with you or follow you. Where's the best place for them to do that?
Well, you can find me on almost all the social media as G Firemark. Gordon Firemark on Instagram, but I don't do much there anyway. And firemark.com is the website blog.
Okay.
And listen to Entertainment Law Update too. Why not?
Definitely. Y'all subscribe to that podcast, and I'll make sure that all those links are in the show notes for you.
Thanks so much.
Thank you again for your time.
Marilyn, it's been a joy. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining me today for this episode. As we wrap up, I'd love for you to do two things. First, subscribe to this podcast so you don't miss an episode. And if you find value here, I'd love it if you would rate it and review it. That really does make a difference in helping other people to discover this podcast. Second, you can connect with me on LinkedIn to keep up with what I'm currently learning and thinking about. And if you're ready to take the next step with a digital strategist to help you grow your law firm, I'd be honored to help you. Just go to lawmarketingzone.com to book a call with me. Stay tuned for our next episode next week. Until then, as always, thanks for listening to Leadership in Law Podcast, and be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts so you don't miss the next episode.
Thanks for joining us on another episode of the Leadership in Law Podcast. Remember, you're not alone on this journey. There's a whole community of law firm owners out there facing similar challenges and striving for the same success. Head over to our website at lawmarketingzone.com. From there, connect with other listeners, access valuable resources, and stay up to date on the latest episodes. Don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform. Until next time, keep leading with vision and keep growing your firm.